Hello, my name is Laura Rupel, and welcome back to the Detours in Music podcast. Today, I'm happy to bring an interview with Evin Blomberg, a violinist from the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, my name is Evin Blomberg, and I'm a violinist, and I currently play in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and Pops, and I'm also the founder and director of the Soli Music Society.
And how long have you been with Cincinnati?
So I've been in the symphony since the fall of 2019. So I guess this is my fourth season. I think fourth season, would that be? Yeah.
With a little interruption of pandemic.
Yeah, it's always hard to keep track because I had two seasons where it was kind of like we didn't know what was going to happen. We were playing maybe a couple concerts a month, if even. So yeah, that feels like a little bit of a black hole in time, but
wow.
But yeah.
Well, I'm curious to hear about your start in music. Did you start on the violin?
Yeah, so I started just before I turned 3. And my sister, actually, my older sister, she's 3 years older than me. She started playing the violin first. And as any younger sibling does, I wanted to copy everything she did all the time. So I would pick up things and imitate her. So my mom, she played piano, but she decided that she'd start me on violin lessons too. So we both kind of started around the same time.
That's so young. I also played violin as a kid, and I started when I was 8, which sounds young, but I remember as an 8-year-old being insecure that I was so much older than everyone else that was starting. So did you start on like a styrofoam thing?
It was a little macaroni box, and my mom had taped a ruler to it, and I think I used like a chopstick or something as the bow. So
it's wild
it was like
that
a
we
fake
do
violin.
that.
Yeah.
And then as you progressed in violin, when was there a switch for you that you thought, oh, I want to do this as a career?
Throughout all of the years that I studied, my sister and I studied, we took it pretty seriously, but we never really considered it as a career option until maybe like middle school. And that's where I also started to think more seriously about what you want to do, especially when you start to think about, okay, what classes am I going to take in high school and what path do I kind of want to start to follow? But I was at this point where I had to start deciding between, do I want to take extracurricular courses after school, or do I want to practice and take violin lessons and do orchestra? So it was kind of at that split in time that I thought, well, I enjoy music much more than all of the other academic stuff. So I think this is really what I want to do. So that's kind of where I think I made that decision to start pursuing it professionally.
Yeah. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Bay Area in California.
Okay. Do you think that was an area that kind of cultivated part of this too in the music scene? I know some people grow up in areas where pursuing music is like no one's ever done it. No one even knows that that's an option. So what do you think?
Yeah. I was very lucky, I think, because we had a lot of youth orchestras and programs. There was also the San Francisco Conservatory had a prep division. So I was part of that for several years. And our schools, the school district that I grew up in basically had music classes for every single grade. So I had music every year, all the time in school. So I think I was really lucky to have that environment.
Cool. When you decided to go to college, where did you attend and what were some of your reasons for that?
So when I actually went to high school for like a week and then I dropped out because it was so difficult to balance both music and academics, at least for me. So I decided I really wanted to pursue music and I just wanted to get straight to it. So I took a year off. I did homeschool and I studied for it's called the CASB test in California, which is basically like a high school equivalent. And then that allowed me to apply to schools in California, college level schools. So I applied to the Colburn School in Los Angeles, and I had a trial lesson with the violin professor there, Robert Lipsett, and we were a great fit. I think I might have had 2 lessons, I think, with him before the audition process. And he kind of coached me through what I need to prepare, what I need to bring to the audition. And then I got in. So that was my I stayed there for 6 years. I did my bachelor's degree there and then an artist diploma
And
degree.
was that starting at like 15?
Yeah, so I was
Oh my
15 when I
gosh.
went there.
Oh my gosh. I was like, what do you mean you didn't go to
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, that's a detour, I guess you could say.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe do you feel like you just really knew yourself well and were like your family was all supportive of that step?
Yeah, I'm very thankful that they were supportive of that because I know as parents, I'm sure to think about your kid dropping out dropping out of high school is like, oh my God, what
A
about their
little.
future? But but yeah, I mean, it was something that I was so sure at the time and really committed to wanting to have a career in music. My parents were very supportive, and it was such a great environment also to start that journey at such a young age because
Mhm.
everybody, it's a small school. I think maybe about 100 students total average, and they it's room and board. They provide room and board, and everything happens on campus. It's a small campus, so it was kind
Mhm.
of a very safe environment versus going
Yeah,
to like a university or something at 15.
right,
I think that would have been very different.
right.
But having that environment and that structure and to be able to just commit everything to music was really great for me.
Wow. What were some things you struggled with during your time at Colburn?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think just the growth process and being around so many talented young people. Also, you everybody has a different path, and when you're
Mhm.
at an age where everything is new, you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, like, oh, this person just got this thing, or this person decided to pursue this, and what about me? I don't know what I want to do yet. Or
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
we have so many options when we're starting to think about having a career in music. There's the recording industry, there's
Mhm.
orchestra, there's competitions,
Mhm.
there are people who like to do recitals or people who want to play in front of an orchestra all the time. So it's a lot to consider. And when you're
Mhm.
young, you want to prepare for all of it. So I think that was probably one of the biggest challenges, is kind of finding an area that I felt good about, both personally and I felt like my skills were towards that, suited towards that.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
did that kind of click in for you to be an orchestral musician then?
I just really enjoy playing with other people. So I think that's kind of just to have this big group of people that are playing music together. That was the environment that I enjoyed a lot. So orchestra, also chamber music, of
Right,
course,
right.
that's a lot of fun. We did have a school orchestra, but we didn't perform that often just because it's a small school. So there was only one.
Hmm.
But anytime we did have a school orchestra performance, it was so much fun. We would spend like 2 weeks rehearsing. Everybody was so excited for the concerts, and it's just such a nice way to share music with a bunch of other people.
Right. Have you thought about what you would be doing if life didn't end up the way it did and if you were not a musician?
Oh boy. If I was not a musician, um, that's a very tough
Yeah,
question.
it's a scary one.
Yeah, I guess because what I do is something that I enjoy, my first instinct is to go towards other things I enjoy.
Mhm.
So I love cooking and baking. And I always thought maybe if I didn't do music, I would have gone to like culinary school or something like that.
Has your career focus changed? I know your location has changed a lot. So I'm just curious to hear about how all those steps kind of came to be.
Mm-hmm. So I started in, I guess, professionally, I started in Los Angeles because that's where I decided to go to music school.
Hmm.
And then from there, after 6 years there, I went to New York and I studied with Pincus Zuckerman at the Manhattan School of Music. And then after that, I moved to London in
Hmm.
England, and I was freelancing with some of the orchestras there. I won a couple jobs, one with the London Philharmonic. I won an audition there and I was on trial. And then I also won a position with the Philharmonia Orchestra, and I won the audition for the Philharmonia Orchestra and I was on trial there as well. Spent a couple years in London. The work environment in an orchestra, at least I don't know about other European orchestras, but in London, it was very difficult for me
Mm.
because I was away from all my family and friends. And it's just a different pace of life there too. And they do a lot of touring. They are performing constantly, and it's
Mhm.
great. It's so exciting. And I got to learn a lot of repertoire and work with a lot of great musicians. But I think because I grew up in this country, it's just, it feels like home to me. So
Mhm.
that's when I auditioned for Cincinnati, and I was so excited when I won the job. And I remember my meeting with Paul at the time, who was working in the office and signing
Mhm.
my contract. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a dream come true. Thank you so much. And
Did you feel like being in Europe, um, do you feel like they have more kind of hustle when it comes to performing and touring?
yeah, I think they do. And I think it's just because it's easier to get around.
Yeah.
The US is just so big. If we want to go to another city to perform, it's like a whole big production.
Hmm.
For them, it's just like, oh yeah, just, hop across, go to the country next door, and we'll
Okay,
just do a
okay.
quick concert there. And
That makes
for
sense.
example, I remember doing a concert in Paris, and we had gone there and come back in the same day, basically.
Wow.
It was crazy how easy
Wow.
it is to get around.
Can you talk about your chamber music career and how that's also expanded to today?
Hmm. Chamber music is something that I think everyone has experienced, and everybody gets something out of it. It's such a valuable thing to do as a musician. So I've always tried to seek out opportunities to do it, whether it's just playing with friends or
Mhm.
finding people in the orchestra who just want to play together. And I think a lot of chamber music is helpful in developing skills as a musician. It's communication and being able to, even just technically, being able to figure out how parts work together and rehearsing and that sort of thing. But I also just really love it because it's fun to be able to feel creative and involved. So when I was in London, I started a duo with one of my friends from Colburn. Her name is Natalie Helm. She's a cellist.
Mhm.
And basically, we just did it as like a passion project. We would just meet up in different cities, pick some repertoire to play, and then just find performance opportunities. Because at the time in London, it was very difficult to do any sort of chamber music because everyone's busy all the time and
Mhm.
the schedule was just really hard. And then when I came to Cincinnati and settled here, there were a lot of people in the orchestra who also love to do chamber music, and there are so many great opportunities, especially since the community loves to hear music. It
Mhm.
feels like there's such
Mhm.
a strong passion for music in this city, which is so
Mhm.
great. And I wanted to do more of that as well. So I started this. I started working on this project last year called the Soli Music Society, and it's basically just a way for musicians who love to perform to find opportunities to perform. And it might not be on a large concert stage in front of thousands of people. Maybe it's just for a room full of 20 kids, or maybe just a small recital space for an audience of 50. But
Mhm.
it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I think chamber music is just such an important thing to keep
Right,
up.
right. I also see kind of on your social media, like you're doing competitions. It seems
Mm-hmm.
like you're always doing things outside of even just playing in the CSO, which is clearly a full-time
Mm-hmm.
job. Um,
Yeah.
do you have advice for people who want to keep themselves up, I guess, or things that you do that help make all that possible?
Yeah. That also kind of started during the pandemic
Mm,
because as a section player, when everyone was, what was the word that they used? Like the social distancing
mm,
on stage, our sections were reduced so much that there were times I would go weeks without playing.
mm,
And I found that very difficult. I found it very difficult to stay motivated and keep practicing when I have these long stretches of time with nothing to do. So that's kind of when I started doing recordings at home. And then as I did the recordings, I thought, oh, well, there's a there are many competitions now that are going digital. So I
mm,
can use these recordings and kind of start to set little goals for myself. Like maybe I want to apply to this thing. So, okay, that gives me a month to prepare this. And it like unknowingly just became a way for me to kind of hold myself accountable.
Right, right.
So that, and I just really enjoy being able to set my own goals and kind of work towards those in addition to CSO, which is great, but it's kind of hard to stay motivated when I don't feel involved in something creatively. So that was kind of one way to keep the fire
Yeah,
inside.
no, that makes
going.
total sense. What are some of your goals right now?
Goals with the Soli Music Society would be to help kind of expand throughout the city and get more people involved in music. And that was also another part of my vision, was trying to bring people who are not as familiar with classical music into performances, and maybe they will come to music hall at some point to see a symphony concert.
Yeah.
But I've met many people who love music but have never come to a classical music concert, and so I had started inviting them to these little chamber music concerts I was doing, and they like loved it. It was like seeing a jazz concert or something. You could see them like bobbing their head or like tapping their feet. They just absolutely love it. So it's not like classical music is hard to process or hard to understand. I think anyone can enjoy it, and I just want to be able to try to bring more people in and share classical music with more people.
Right. Even like you said, like making it to the concert hall with the symphony doesn't even have to be the goal. It can just be exposure. And, if it's more people listening to classical music on Spotify, like that's still helps us in the long run too.
Yeah. Especially with kids, I found, because sometimes even just seeing a performer live up close within like 5 or 6 feet of them, they will go home and start asking their parents for lessons. And maybe if the parents can't get an instrument or don't want to invest in lessons, maybe they will at least bring them to another concert. And then maybe someday when that kid grows up, they'll give their kids lessons or bring them to concerts. And it trickles down in so many ways, and a lot of the ways we won't even begin to think about. But I think in the long run, it's just a really great thing to try to get more people involved.
I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Evin. It was very interesting to hear about what she's passionate about and how even at such a young age she was willing to sacrifice so much and make no compromises in terms of her education, and really has followed the violin to beyond, to across the pond, to back here and now in Cincinnati. And it was very cool to hear about her passions, and I hope that we're all a little bit inspired to do what we can to promote classical music and reach out to communities that are not hearing it as frequently. Thank you for listening, and I hope you catch the next one.